this open, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to describe. So here's the facing piece. Lisa, I'm just recording, so
Okay.
So we can put it on the page. Here are the facing pieces for the wrap dress. Here's the back neck facing and the front pieces. And they get attached right sides together. The seams line up at the neck, and the front facings go all the way down to right past the center seam. So you're going to pin and stitch 5/8 seam allowance. And when on this one side where the belt is, you're going to keep the strap out of the way, because when you turn it over, the belt will still be there. So stitch 5/8 seam allowance, and then when you turn it under, you got to understitch. So let's get started on this one. Switch it back. All right, so I've got the facing on the wrap dress. So where the neck is, so here's the facing stitched on. I did it 5/8 seam allowance. Where the neck is, you want to clip to relax that curve. So just clip V notches across. See? You want your neckline to lay nicely. Okay, and be sure not to clip your seam. Just clip all the way to the shoulder seam. And then we're going to understitch. So press the seam open, and then press the seam. After you press it open, just to set the seam, press the seam down towards the facing side and understitch. So that means the seam will be laying down on the facing side, and you're going to understitch right there. Okay, and then when you flip it over, it'll lay nicely. Okay, let's review understitching again. Understitching is a stitch that it's going to help it stay folded down. So here's my facing. It's stitched on. I've clipped the neck curve, and I've pressed the seam. I'm going to turn the seam down onto the facing. Here's the seam. Here's the dress. Here's the facing. Turn the seam down onto the facing. Okay. Fold it down. You're going to stitch. Here's your seam right here. You're going to stitch right on top of the seam. That's what understitching is.
And what does that do?
That helps the facing stay folded to the inside. Never skip that step. If a pattern says understitch, do it.
Okay, so that would be along where I have it ironed up, right?
You're going to press it down onto the facing side.
I did.
It's the seam right here.
The seam where I stitched it together, I ironed it onto piece 8 and full ironed it up to the piece that has the inner facing.
Yes.
Okay.
On the facing side. Yes.
Okay. And so that that piece of material, I'm going to stitch it up towards the inner facing.
What do you mean stitch it up? You're laying the seam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is both pieces of the seam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going to lay it down on the facing where it's interfacing it. This is my interfacing.
Yeah. Mine's white.
And you're gonna stitch on top here.
Okay. And then, is that again, 5/8 or do I go, does it matter?
No, it's not 5/8 because you're just stitching on the seam. So
I'm just gonna get right next to the edge.
yeah, yeah. So this is what my understitching looks like on the facing. It's black, so you can't really see it, but it does, it just helps it fold down nicely. And then you can press it down, give it a nice press. And on the wrap dress, here's the waist point. And remember, when you didn't fold the hem in, now you can fold that hem in and stitch it down because you got this stitched, but you left 4 inches open from the waist point, and now you can fold that in and even it up. And then there's your strap. Okay. You can fold in, there's the neck. And if you got a label, you can put it right there. And if your fabric wants to fray, you can either take your pinking shears and pink that, or you can spend some time and turn it under 1/8 of an inch and stitch it down, or you can zigzag across it. You've got a couple of options. If you're doing a heavier knit fabric, it probably won't do anything. I'm doing a stretch woven on this one. So you recall when we first started and we hemmed the front edge of the skirt, but we didn't hem it all the way up. We left 4 inches open and we attached the strap.
Yes.
So now that you have the facing on, you have to go to that 4-inch part that wasn't hemmed and hem it. Because the facing came all the way down where you folded it, folded over, and this part is still open. So you've got a hem right there. So you have to just fold it and finish it.
Okay.
Do you see where it's still open?
Yeah, it was right here.
Yeah, so go ahead and stitch that down, fold it in.
Okay.
Fold it in neatly on the underside and
Yep.
press it, and then stitch it up to make it all match.
Okay, and then I'm not doing anything with the piece that I just did the understitching on yet.
No, there's nothing else to do. You're
I
finished.
don't have to sew it down. It's just going to stay open like that. I just pressed it down.
You just pressed it, yeah. And that's why you understitch, so it'll lay down by itself.
Okay, I see. All right.
Okay. Now, depending on the fabric, let me say this, depending on your fabric and the look you want, you can top stitch all the way around if you like.
Okay. Okay, well, let me see. Let me do this.
Yeah, take a look at it and see what you want to do. But the main thing is you gotta close that hem up, because you don't want it'll, you know, as you wear it, you're like, what is this? No, I'm sorry. I'm so glad you said that. Oh, I get to go in and keep going. Okay, so invisible zipper. Here's the edge of your dress. This dress has the collar on it. So here's the raw edge where the facing would go if you're not doing a collar. All right, line up the tape, put the zipper face down on the back seam of the dress, whichever side you're working on, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm working on the left side. So zipper face down, right sides together, and line up the tape with the very edge of the dress. And pin it. And pin it right in the middle, because after you pin it down, you're going to open the zipper. So make sure your pins are not in the way. Okay. And make sure you put enough pins, because zippers do slide, especially when you are stitching on the zipper with the zipper tape side, in the case of an invisible zipper. So put enough pins so that it stays in place while you're stitching. Now, Christy and everybody else, you do not stitch the back seam of the dress. Leave it open and then put this, so you can put the zipper in. I've got a 20-inch zipper. If you have a 22-inch zipper, that's fine. The only thing you don't want is a zipper sitting on top of your butt. So if you got a 24-inch, you may want to, you're not going to cut it or anything. We're just going to bring the seam up, and I'll show you that.
What is that?
He read it, he responded, so it tells me.
So that's what your zipper should look like when it's pinned on the back seam of your dress. And your seam is going to be open at the bottom of the zipper.
Sure, I appreciate the money. I agree.
Then open the zipper all the way down. So it's open. If you've never worked with an invisible zipper foot, practice on an extra zipper. Just get a piece of fabric and practice on it so you can teach yourself how it works, because the only thing is just getting it started. All right. Now let me point this out. That little plastic part right there that starts the zipper, you see it right there? The zipper foot does not like it. So you're going to start past it. So start about right here, because the zipper foot won't start with that little plastic part. It only wants the coils of the zipper. So the way it works, I'll take this off again for those of you that haven't worked on it. These are the little grooves. The coils fit up into that spot. Okay, that plastic part won't fit there, so it won't sew. It's just a little, quirkiness about this foot. All right, so come down and make sure the point is on the right side. Sorry. Make sure the point is on the right side of the coils, because your needle is going to be right there where the coils and where the coils are, where it's going to stitch right in that groove. Sure, I don't want my phone to start acting up, y'all.
Nikki, is it always to the right side, even if you're sewing the other side of the dress, or is it?
No, if you're sewing on the other side, it'll be on the inside. Sorry. So on this case, it's the right side. It'll be on the inside of the coils. So if you're stitching on the other side, it's going to be on the inside of the coils. Thanks for asking that question. All right, so I'm going to lower it right where it's past the little plastic part. Sorry, that was my fault. Oh man, should have let that guy come over with that thing. Okay, now lower the needle and make sure it's in position. You may want to do a couple of stitches, okay? Take that first pin out. And then just go slowly. Go as close as you can to the next pin. You don't want the zipper to shift. Don't take your pins out too soon. The zipper tape will shift on top of your fabric. And if you pin properly, like on the middle to the outer edge, you'll see your needle won't even get close to the pin. Christy,
Yes.
on your machine,
Mhm.
make sure your needle, like when you put your the invisible zipper foot on, make sure your needle is positioned to go right there in the middle in the hole.
Okay.
You may have to change your needle position. Okay?
Yeah.
Anybody else got a fancy smancy machine? Just check your needle position. Just use your hand wheel and roll down to make sure. You don't need a special. Say it
Nikki,
again.
I'm looking at how you pinned that, and I had already pinned mine, but I pinned them the opposite way. So the head of the needle will hit the pressure foot first. Should I pin it?
Yeah. You always want the point of your pin to go towards the needle, regardless of whether you're doing this or anything else. If you're pinning vertically,
Okay, thank you. I didn't know
you
that.
can pull them out. Because in this case, this is a good example. You want to get as close as possible. So if the pin head is right there, you can't get as close as possible, and you got to pull it out. And
Thank you. That's a new thing for me to learn.
Going over the seam. Okay, so now we're coming to the end. I want you to stitch all the way till you can't stitch anymore. There you go. Stop right there. You can do a back stitch if you like. There you go. I'm scared to tell you guys how we used to do this before this foot was invented.
I think I did zippers for my daughter's dresses before you had a invisible.
Oh, you did? So you remember doing the fingers and pulling the coil apart and all that and pressing it?
Well, I don't know that I did it right. I can tell you that much, but this is why I don't.
Here's the first side. Here's the first side of the invisible zipper. Okay. Now let's go to the next side. Little. All right, so it's on the first side. Now we got to put it on the other side. So we're just going to line up the zipper, turn the dress on the other side so you can have it on the wrong side. Zip the zipper up, zipped up, because you're going to put the other side, other seam on on the zipper. You'll put the other seam. Okay. There's the head of the zipper, and you're putting the other seam on. And you want to put it on with the zipper closed, just like you did in the beginning. Okay. But this time, since you have a defined waist right there where the zipper is stitched, that's where you want to start. And here's the seam that's already stitched. And here's the other seam. You want to line it up. And pin it. And pin on the zipper side, the zipper tape side. Start right there because you want to make sure that when you start stitching, you're going to start stitching right here because you want to make sure that those two seams are lined up. So I'm going to stitch pin. Although this time you're going to be stitching on the other side where the bulk of your dress, the bulk of your project is going to be on the inside of the sewing machine. You always want to stitch zippers the same direction on a garment because zippers do shift. So any shifting that's going to be done, you want it to be done in the same direction on both sides. That's why they make zippers with the dual sides. You don't want to turn it upside down and come back the other way because your zipper will be crooked, be installed crooked. And you'll wonder why. Why can't I get it straight? Stitch it the same direction. Now, at the top where I'm putting it in, I want to make sure that's lined up too. Okay. Now remember, this is our important piece right now, where the seam is. So I'm going to unzip the zipper. And I'm going to start stitching where my seam is. Right there. I'm going to start stitching right here. Okay. So remember, your point is going to be on the inside of the coils. So because you're on the other side, now it's the left side. All right, I put my foot down. I'm going to hand roll it down. Just give me one little stitch. And then take my pin out. And then I'm going to stitch all the way down until I can't stitch anymore. Now, if you have a dress that doesn't have a defined waistline, you don't have to do this. You can just start at the top, just like you did in the beginning, and you'll be fine. You only do this when you have a defined waistline because inevitably it's not going to line up. Okay. And you can even test it. See, at this point, before you stitch the whole thing. And the one thing that will interfere in an invisible zipper zipping up, it won't go, it absolutely will not, is one strand of thread. Uh-oh, there we go. We must have one somewhere. I think it's my tail thread when it first started. Yeah. It is. See that little booger right there? Can you see it? Mine is still a little off. Let me see. Where are we? Can you see? It's about 1/8 of an inch off.
So are you gonna fix it or leave it?
I think I'm gonna fix it. I think I'm gonna fix it. And you're working with, all of you guys are working with knit fabric who are making this dress. So that's is even more important that you start at that seam. And sometimes, you know, some people don't care that much, or they just fuss with it too much and like forget it. You know, I don't know. It's just a thing of mine. Ah, closer. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with the zipper and I'll fix it from the bottom when I get done because I don't want you guys to, but you see what the challenge is, right? To get that seam lined right up. Remember the little plastic part up top. And then what you're going to do is go back and stitch it down. And if you still can't get it, hand baste it first, put a couple of basting stitches in there to get it right, and then stitch it with the machine. There's your invisible zipper. And see, let's see how off I am. Oh, it lined up. Well, no, about a 16th now. So there's your zipper. And what you're going to do, because you started at the beginning past that little plastic part, you want to go back and come down the other direction, just so the foot won't be bothered, because it's not going to start stitching on that little plastic divot. And then I'll show you how to close up your seam on the bottom. Any questions about your invisible zipper? Does everybody have a foot? Who doesn't?
I don't have one for this machine, but I have one for my other machine, so I'll just get it out.
Okay.
I just ordered one for this machine, thanks to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the way we used to put them in is like, some people would press them open and they'd stitch, but you had to get your fingers and make sure the coil stayed flat. And inevitably you would always get a thread that would stitch on top of the coils, and an invisible zipper will not work with the thread in the way. So here I've got, my dress has a collar on it. So my zipper tape goes all the way up on the facing piece, and mine is going to be folded down. like so. See? Yeah. And if you have a facing, I've got a collar. If you don't have a collar and you have a facing, it's still going to look that way because here's where the facing is going. And it's going to be stitched 5/8 and it's going to be folded under, folded down. So your zipper will stop right there. Sometimes you can, on some dresses, if you don't stitch an invisible zipper all the way up, you have to put a hook and eye. But I like an invisible zipper to be invisible all the way up. So my back neck will look like that in this dress. Okay. All right, let's talk about how to close up your seam on the bottom of the zipper. You are going to need your regular zipper foot. Your regular zipper foot, not the invisible. All right, so I've got my, oh, let me close it up because I had put it together because I was working on pockets and all that. I'm gonna open it up some. Who was I showing this dress to? Oh, I think I tried it on. That's what I did. That's why I had it sewn up. Okay. All right. The bottom of your zipper seam is open. All right, there's your 2 notches. And here's your seam where the zipper is on both sides. That's the seam where the zipper is. Okay. Get your regular zipper foot out so that you can okay. Here's my regular zipper foot. And what I'm going to do now, your zipper foot, the zipper should be about 5/8. It may not, depending on, how you stitched it and everything. On an invisible zipper, it may not be. Some zippers do come wider. I've got a thin one here. So your seam allowance on the back seam of your skirt, may not be exact. All right, so what you're going to do is, because you've got your regular zipper foot on, this will allow you to lower your needle right on the seam where you stitch the zipper. The zipper should be out of the way. You're not going to stitch on the zipper. This is the seam where the zipper was stitched. So what you're going to do is just make sure the zipper is out of the way and lower your needle as close down onto that seam as you can get. Okay. And then just keep stitching. It's that simple. Just keep stitching. And then continue stitching down to keep your, and I'm a little crooked here. And then continue stitching down to finish your seam off. Got it? I just ran out of bobbin, so that's why I'm not going to keep going. Okay, want to review that again? Lower your needle right at the end of where your zipper stitching stopped and just keep coming down to finish your seam. Get some more bobbin. What questions does anyone have? Do this again. All right, let's go around and see where everyone's at. Lisa, what you doing? Lisa, you there? All right, to review again, when you stitching the end, stitching your seam of the skirt down after you put the invisible zipper in, with your regular zipper foot, you want to put it in the machine and lower your needle right on the same stitch line where the zipper was put in. I think you can see it better. I haven't cleaned it up. You can see it better here. So I just kind of connected it and kept going down. And if this bothers your butt, you can, do a zigzag stitch over this and cut this off. Okay. But if you have the right size zipper, the bottom of the tape is softer than you doing a zigzag. So you can just keep this on there, but you don't want a zipper long enough to be on your butt. You want it about 2 to 3 inches right below your waist. You don't want it to be, on top of your butt. Plus it'll bug you. All right, we got zippers in on the full dress. I don't know about you guys, but I think mine is done. What I have to do, I have to hand stitch my neck down because I don't have the facing on there because I have the collar. So just hand stitch that down. And I did my sleeves because I'm doing sleeveless. And I've already hemmed it just because I wanted to. I had already hemmed my bottom, so I was good. And the video is on the page of the rolled hem foot. This is the fabric I was demonstrating that with. So, and I think, did I hem the bottom of the wrap? No, I didn't. Okay. Okay.